So I'm thinking about words, and it's driving me a little bit nuts because it's very difficult to understand how it is we understand words and we can use words efficiently and correctly. Because the reason I don't understand is that understanding words is dependent on using other words to explain what they mean. So if I want to explain what one word means, I need to use other words to explain it. So maybe the other words I use are simpler and can be understood more easily, and then we can apply that understanding to the new, different word. And you can see all the words I'm using here to explain, for example, they're all individual words and they all have their own meanings, and somehow people understand what I'm saying and I can communicate properly. But I don't understand how it's possible to communicate properly when words are dependent on other words. So it's not possible to understand without using words. You're trying to explain words using words to explain. I would think that if you want to explain what words mean, you need to use a different form of understanding. So if you want to understand picking up something, then you would physically pick up something to show what the word pick up means or what the words pick up mean. And that would make more sense. But what we can do is we can use other words to explain what we mean. But what confuses me is how we understand what words mean when we have to use other words to explain what a word means. So there never seems to be a point at which we can properly understand because we're using words to explain other words, and so we never get to the bottom of the issue. We are dependent on words to explain what words mean, but we're trying to explain what words mean themselves. And so I'm using lots of words here to explain what I mean, and I hope I'm communicating properly and you understand what I mean. But how can you possibly understand if I'm using words, the very thing I'm talking about, to try and understand what words mean? So this dependency we have on words to explain what other words mean makes it difficult to understand what words mean, I would think. So I'm amazed at our ability as humans to utilize words properly and to understand what certain words mean more easily, and then we can use those easier to understand words to understand more difficult words. And there are so many words that we use, and they all have different meanings, and somehow we maintain our understanding of all of these different words, and it just seems crazy to me that it's possible to understand what words mean and to and the fact that we use other words to explain what different words mean means that we never get to the bottom of the issue. We never really understand properly, except sometimes we use physical actions to explain what words mean. Like if we want to explain pour, for example, like pouring water into a cup, we could physically pour water into a cup to show what we mean. So that makes more sense. But sometimes the things we want to explain can't be explained with a physical action that's different to a word to make it easier to understand. Some words are just interdependent, they're just dependent on other words to explain, and that's the end of the issue. There's no physical way to explain what certain words mean. like concept, for example, or even the word itself, understand. I mean, you could physically understand something, I suppose, but I don't know how I learned how the word understand is used. I don't know how I learned what it means. And I don't understand how I can use other words to explain the fact that I don't understand what understand means. And you can see I'm going round in circles, it appears. It seems as if I can never understand what words mean because I'm so dependent on words to explain what I mean. Sometimes I don't need to use words to explain what I mean. I can use physical actions. But other times I can't explain words using physical actions. I have to use other words to explain what I mean. And maybe the other words are simpler and can be understood more easily, and it would make sense to explain certain words using other words, and it could be understood, the new word. So I do find it absolutely amazing that we can be understood properly using words when we can only be understood by using other words to explain what words mean. So it seems we never step away from using words. It's just that certain words, I suppose, are more basic and can be understood more easily. And then those words can be used to explain the meaning of other words which are more difficult to understand. So I hope I'm making sense here, but basically, I don't understand how we understand what words mean because it seems impossible to understand what words mean because we're so dependent on using words to explain what words mean, words themselves mean. And so it seems like it wouldn't be possible to understand words except in some cases where you can physically do things to show what you mean. But I think it's absolutely stupendous that we can be understood properly by using words, even when explaining what other words mean. It's absolutely amazing, and where would we be if we can use words to explain ourselves? It's just fantastic, and I'm very happy that we can use words so well, so properly. But I'm also thinking, how do I communicate word understanding to my children? And can I be involved in my children's education anyway? And I'm really sad about that because I want to help my children with language, and I can't be involved at the moment, and I don't know if I'll ever be involved. It is absolutely awful that I can't help my children because I think I could really help them in so many ways. It's just not possible, I suppose, and it's absolutely tragic. It is so awful that this is the situation. And even now I'm thinking of the words I'm using to explain myself. And it's just incredible how we use words and can be understood properly. It just doesn't make sense how it's possible. But where would we be if we can use words the way we do? It's just freaky and crazy and fantastic, though.